Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media on this Wednesday evening, coming to you live out of Johannesburg. And it's in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi, where we look at current issues and more importantly, looking at the latest developments. Now, I think for many of us, I'm not too sure whether we have recovered from yesterday and the entire country was basically on tenterhooks as well. There was a sign of nervousness in the country with the March on March movement, and obviously they with the countrywide protests that had taken place. And again, it raises many questions, but more importantly, what are some of the issues? What are some of the underlying issues? And is this only about undocumented migrants, or are we looking at the intersection of immigration together, highlighting the socio-economic frustration and also the political dynamics of the country? Now, we know that the movement has been calling for mass deportations of undocumented foreign nationals, but also at the same time, a number of other issues have been raised. Public service access, where the strain on public health care, housing, education, and there are just so many grievances. And these we knew were long coming, but also taking a look at some of the tactics that have been used as well. We know that a number of memorandums that have been submitted to officials in all the major cities across the country, but also now what we heard yesterday is a vow to continue weekly protests for the next 6 months. And this raises a question, what is this going to do to South Africa, the political landscape? What impact is this going to have on South African politics? And are we looking at a case of political exploitation? Now, let's unpack all of that with my panel this evening. We have got Phapano, who is a social commentator, Melita Ngcobo, who is Siyafana Sonke campaign, Sheikh Saeed Ncane, who will be joining us shortly as well, chair of the South African Muslim Council, and also joined by Donovan Williams, social commentator, and also with the Mail and Guardian op-ed columnist. Phapano, right on top of the screen, Donovan, and also Melita. To all of you, good evening, and we welcome you to the show.
Evening.
Yes, Donovan, this is a topic that needs a lot more discussion, but also introspection from a South African perspective. And from what we saw in the build-up to March and to June the 30th, and what had actually happened yesterday, and just before we came on air, and you mentioned that there was a sign of nervousness as well. It's been a pretty traumatic experience, I would say, for the entire country.
Look, South Africans are very resilient in whichever way. We are quite used to crisis. But I also think we also don't like cruelty or nastiness. And at the same time, we also know that what yesterday signified was that frustration that the overwhelming majority of South Africans feel of their lives not improving dramatically enough, which has been a complaint, I would say, even from 1994, in terms of even the compromise and so forth. That frustration is what also is so traumatizing, that we have come to a head in such a way that there's something has got to give. And if that something has got to give, will matters even become even worse? We are quite we're quite a fragmented society. I think I can say that very openly. Our cohesion is not what we're supposed to be in many ways. And so yesterday further reinforced that fragmentation, or the perception of division and fragmentation. And so I think that's what it was hurtful, and the cruelty and so forth, because I really, and I've been saying this publicly and writing it and whatever, I don't think we must be demonizing, because we so easily do it, and it's labeling. We demonize the poor who feel the brunt of the type of immigration we get within the country. and pontificate in such a way. At the same time, though, you don't, the people who are not causing the hurt, but taking positions of employment or whatever it is, or certain services and that, and that are people who are also poor as well. And you don't also demonize them because they may have their own reasonings and so forth, but you're harsh with criminals and that. So I think part of it is that it becomes such a strained conversation because there's a lot of demonizing and labeling, and our politics have become so cheap in that sense, which goes back to what South Africans have been calling for quite a while, but no one seems to be able to do it because we do not seem to have the leadership to do it, is to have a conversation as South Africans. We haven't been able to have that conversation as South Africans.
Well, Donovan, in fact, I'd like Phapano to actually comment on this, why we haven't had this conversation, because we know that last year when the government had actually launched and talking about nation building and having this conversation with the entire nation, a year down the line, Phapano, it hasn't happened. And I know, Phapano, you've come under fire for some highly controversial posts that, and I've been following you religiously on Facebook. I've been following your posts as well. But also, you've taken a view both from a micro and a macro level in terms of the social dynamics, the socio-economic dynamics, and also the political dynamics that are playing out in the country. And just your take and your view on how you see what has evolved over a period of time and what has led to the situation that we find ourselves in today.
No, thank you so much, Inad, and thank you for the panel and the viewers, of course, at home. I just wanted to start by saying that what is happening in the country reminds me of, organizational theory we were taught when we were growing up as it relates to class contradictions. Because what we are saying in Marxist terms, many would say that the lumpen proletariat is leading itself. And what you obviously see is that the masses can't even analyze the class contradictions. Hence, Donovan was speaking of the hatred that we are seeing meted out, in particular, against the exploited and the poor. And for some of us, it's very difficult to then be on the side of those that we are saying, they've been poor for a very long time. Because for many of us, we were taught that the true signs of a revolutionary, or a revolutionary is guided by true feelings of love. So I do not think that the poor must be sanctified from scrutiny or criticism. I think that it's important that the same scrutiny and critique that we give to the rich and the wealthy, it must also apply to the poor, because as Black people, this is not how we grow up. When one is listening to some of the leaders of this movement, they were saying that they are suspending Ubuntu. And for some of us, I grew up in Soweto, and I grew up in an area where Inkatha Freedom Party was mutilating and killing our people. So the science that one has been seeing has nothing to do with, for some of us, with nationhood or nation building. These are the reminiscence of what we saw in the 80s. Actually, for me, in the 90s, when one was very young, with Inkatha Freedom Party. So I just wanted to start there to say that I think from a class consciousness perspective, one cannot really justify the horrific scenes that we have seen, where the poorest of the poor, the poorest Malawians, have been attacked, where we are seeing Tsongas, simply because they cannot speak any Nguni nation. They've been attacked, they've been ostracized. So I think it's important that as a people that we are able to call that out for what it is. It's neuro-tribalism, it's neuro-nationalism. And for myself personally, not in my name, but I also wanted to speak to the leadership of the ANC in particular. just a day ago, or was it yesterday, we saw the president with the leadership of this movement, and they were holding hands. And for me, it clearly shows the lack of decisiveness as it comes to the president, because this issue could have been nipped in the bud a very long time ago. I mean, we are really dealing with issues of effect and not cause at the moment, because the issue of migration could have been dealt with, because what we are seeing is that it has been exploited, not only by March and March, it has been exploited by political parties which stand for nothing. And I mean, at this stage, the question is, why is there no political party or any movement that is taking the state to court so that we force the state to actually deal with the issue of borders? So there's a level of exploitation from political parties, and as it comes to the ANC, there's a serious lack of decisiveness, because on one hand, the president will be saying one thing, on another, he'll be with these leaders who actually stand for nothing but highly divisive. So for me, I think that's where I will start. But as you know, as a child of a poor woman and a father, as I said, this does not represent me. It doesn't matter if the poor have serious issues. I mean, we have been fighting side by side with the poor. I mean, for some of us, we're part of the anti-privatization movement. We joined the struggle when we were very young, but this is not how we confronted issues. For me, this is disgusting, as Carl Niehaus said, and this is barbaric. It has nothing to do with real concerns of the people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Phapano. Melita, let's bring you in. And Sheikh Saeed, I see you've joined us as well. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to you as well. We'll get to you in a minute, Sheikh Saeed. Melita, just as the Siyafana Sonke campaign, and if you could just take us through and provide us, some context in terms of how, because there's just so much we can actually unpack from what both Donovan and Phapano had to say. But I'd just like to give you an opportunity just to give us an overview on your thoughts on where we are at this point in time as a country. Melita, yes.
Siyafana Sonke campaign. It is a campaign that started. It has been endorsed by 100 and social movements that has endorsed. We are concerned about what is happening, and we always say no to xenophobia, and we are concerned about what is happening around, because of, if you can see, it is destroying Ubuntu. It is destroying how to be a human. It is destroying the way you think, because of most of the people now, they are thinking that the Africans are not supposed to be in Africa. They're not supposed to be in South Africa, and that is very painful, because we are the generation of workers and we are fighting against each other. We are killing that trend of Ubuntu. We are killing that trend of a human, because most of the time people travel from where they are to time coming to Johannesburg, because of I am looking for better future. It's not because of I am leaving my home because I don't like my home. You will like your home, but there is something that forced you to go out, and where you go, you have to be respected, you have to be treated well. And then the other thing that is very painful is the Tsonga people who are suffering. Yesterday there was a lady. There was a lady who was threatened that they are going to take away their homes because they are not hearing what is they are saying, but they are speaking Tsonga. It is true that it is xenophobia and it is tribalism together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And let's bring Sheikh Saeed into the discussion. Sheikh Saeed, you've been listening to what all our fellow panelists have been actually saying, and it is clear that 30 years down the line, 30 years well into our democracy, where there was just so much hope for this country, and it all appears as if we are now heading back to a stage where we haven't appreciated what it's taken this country to get to where we are at this point in time in attaining and fighting for our democracy. It's taken a lot of sacrifice, it's taken blood, sweat, tears, it's taken lives actually to get to where we are at this point in time. And to see what is unfolding in front of our very own eyes, Sheikh Saeed, what does it tell you? How does this make you feel?
First of all, Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you all, the host, the panel, and the viewers at home. Thank you so much for inviting me in this discussion. Yes, it is a very sensitive discussion, and obviously there will be differences of views and differences of opinion on this issue. But the basis of this discussion is that we will all agree that the government that has been in power for the past 30 to somewhat years, they have failed their duty. They have dismally failed their duty. So as a result of the failure of those who have been entrusted to govern the country, that's why we are seeing all these challenges, whereby it seems like as if it's a black on black violence, or Africans are turning against each other. But we have to all agree that the government has failed, first of all, to look after the borders, and to control the issue of migration. For instance, all of us who are here, as I'm sitting here in this panel, I am at home, and I made sure that when I parked my car, I locked the gate, as well as I locked the garage, and I locked the door, I locked the windows as I am here. And all of us, when we are at home in our safe space, we make sure that our environment is secured. So if I leave the gate open of my house, I leave the doors, the windows open of my house, if there is a great possibility that thieves will come, even harmful insects or even snakes, animals, there's going to be a lot of problem if I have not taken enough precautions. So we first have to agree that our government has failed us dismally. The main problem is the government. And obviously, we do not condone violence of any sort. All faiths, be it Christians, Muslims, Hindus, and all faiths promote peace. We do not condone the violence that has happened or that is happening. But we have to agree that each and every country, a functional country, nobody will just come in and do as they please. As we're sitting here, you cannot just go to China, to Russia, or any functional country or democracy and you just become a barber, or you open a tuck shop, or you do anything, because the government has failed. So those people who have put the government in place, they felt, though it is, we're not condoning violence and threatening people, but they felt that people are feeling on the ground because they are feeling the heat on the ground. That, okay, because the government has failed, so let us take law in our own hands. That's where maybe we can say that a tragedy and a mistake for those people who are threatening But we cannot first blame the marchers and blame those who are feeling the heat on the ground. We first have to take the blame to the government. So until and unless our government does not secure the borders and does not deal with the issue of migration properly, we will still have these challenges of marches, we still have these challenges of local indigenous South Africans complaining of jobs, and also not just only the government, even the employers themselves, instead of employing local South Africans, and the landlords, instead of giving rent to the shop owners maybe who are local, because the legislation is there. We all know the Migration Act, Act 13 of 2002, and what it talks about, the issues of migration, and if someone comes to open a business, they must have 5 million and all, and so on and so on. So even the employers, the private sector, they saw an opportunity where they can enslave, exploit, and slave labor to the migrants, because the migrants don't have papers. The migrants are ready to work for peanuts. So we cannot only now also blame only the government. We are also blaming the business community, the private sector, for allowing such to continue. And obviously, if the government, the corrupt government, as well as the corrupt private sector, they are working hand in hand to make sure that migrants are being exploited and South Africans are being marginalized. This is obviously a ticking bomb. But we thank God Almighty that after all these marches, we have not heard of many casualties, many who have died, because even the marchers were saying these are peaceful march. They were trying to create an awareness with peaceful marches. Obviously, every cause and every revolution will be hijacked by wrong elements. But we must blame and condemn the government as well as the corrupt private sector, both the government, which is corrupt, and the private sector.
Yes,
They
Sheikh,
all
can I
work
just give them a little piece? Yes, Sheikh Saeed. In fact, I just want Donovan to come in, and then Phapano as well to comment. You know, Donovan, we see that all fingers are being pointed at government at this point in time. And I just want to refer you to a post from Phapano where she talks about the ANC taking the blame for the mess that the country finds itself in. She speaks about breeding, yes, and we are talking about the undocumented foreigners, about opening up barber shops and spaza shops and all of those. But Phapano makes a very, very telling point here, and I'd like your comment, Donovan, where she speaks about breeding a society, or the government breeding a society that genuinely believes it is entitled. It is genuinely believes that it is owed jobs, it is owed social grants, it is owed NSFAS, it is owed free housing, it is owed free healthcare and free education with zero effort. Your thoughts, Donovan?
Even before I come to that, Inyat, and thank you for that post. I haven't read it, Phapano, because you obviously didn't make certain I did, and I'm your Facebook friend, but Inyat is a closer Facebook friend, obviously, than me, you know. That I can't stay quiet. I think this is a very dangerous analogy, with due respect, Sheikh Saeed. To use an analogy and make it seem that people entering our country through borders are snakes and animals and that. No. We can't have that language on a public platform, and I will stay quiet. These are human beings. You may have tried to make an analogy, but please do not refer to any human being as some type of animal. Please do not. And I don't want to address you directly like I am, but that I'm sure Phapano, others, and even you, Inet, would be very cognizant of. That's how you call for violence when you dehumanize human beings. You allow people to be treated in particular ways. And given our history, not just in this country, but in the world, There have been so many massacres that have taken place based on using an analogy or comparing a human being to insects and animals and snakes, for that matter, like they are cunning and bad people and things like that. So please, I beg of you not to not to revert to such language. It's quite important that I raise that. Moreover, though, you know, I went to watch a movie at the bioscope on Iran. The bioscope is, maybe I shouldn't advertise it, right? But I went to watch about Iran and and the suppression of, you know, the history of it. And one of the things it showed then, it made me think even about Tiananmen Square in China, that when there was dissent, because the Iranian government crushed the dissent, regardless of it being correct dissent, it made certain it kept control of the country. And I was recalling even like Tiananmen Square, that where the Chinese government, through the Communist Party, or ruled through the Communist Party, crushed the dissent. They brought the citizens in line. And is that the lesson we need to learn? Must you be harsh on freedoms so as to make certain you can keep citizens in line? Now, it could only work in real terms is if your government delivers on the social and economic services to improve the country. So from Tiananmen Square, in particular, the Chinese government delivered, I mean, it's well-known facts, delivered on a number of levels. Iran as well, the belief and confidence in that government, even though it's a different type of democracy in terms of a theocracy, right, and a different type of system, people believe in that government because they really believe that that government, like the Chinese government, is putting their needs first. So it's not an issue of just policing borders. If anything, COVID showed no matter how powerful you are as a country, you cannot stop people entering your country. You can't. You won't be able to. Even the Chinese, you know, they tried to build a wall in whatever century, and they couldn't keep people out. They couldn't even keep people out during COVID. There's no country that can keep human beings out, no matter how powerful you are. You cannot police a border like you police your property at home. It's not the same thing. It's impossible. The matter, though, is this, is that there are a number of levels to this, and we shouldn't be simplifying it. There is a problem, and I think this is where Phapano is 100% correct. In that what you read, in a sense, not completely on, not 100% on that, because I have a particular view, but in the matters she raised about a lumpen proletariat, in a manner of speaking, that you can have, because two things can be correct at the same, two opposite things can be correct at the same time. You can have something that is wrong that's done, that government is failing or not producing and so forth, and you have a right to say, but hold on, you know what, I can't even work as a waiter because the waiters are all Zimbabweans. I can't work as a whatever it is, as young people, because lots of this marches was young people. And you can be correct and justified to say, but government, what are you doing? You're like, you know, like, there's no space for me here. I can't even use public services. And besides the corruption and so forth. At the same time, that doesn't give you a right to go into a restaurant and pull a waiter out and say, what are you doing here? That's what's lumpen. There's nothing lumpen about you protesting about your rights. That's not entitlement. Rights are not entitlement. it's like as if you go to a public hospital, and when you're getting bad service or you're getting something bad, the nurse or whatever gets angry with you and say, you think you're smart, you must go to a private hospital if that's the case. Why don't you just go there? And you go to a private hospital and they teach you badly as well, because that's what happens. And if you complain, they only say, why don't you go to a public hospital? And the reason being, on both sides of the class divide, that they don't give you that service because they don't believe that health is a right. They think they're doing you a favor. So we have rights, and we are correct to protest about our rights not being adhered to. We are correct to tell government, whoever it is, that they're not correct. But that does not take away our responsibilities. Like, for instance, somebody posted earlier now, saying one of these retail stores with the online shopping, etc., they don't have enough motorbike riders, right, to deliver it. And my response was, well, I hope the young people and so forth go and get their bike licenses, because you can't be asked to be given this job if you don't go and get your bike license in the meantime and apply for it and go there. But if you're not going to take that initiative, then that's entitlement. Then that's entitlement in a different way. But I would be cautious and wary to wade into something to say people are having, our social net that we have. You're having a baby because you want the social grant or whichever it is. I'd be very cautious and wary to move there, because I don't think if you're going to treat people like they're lumpen, they're going to be lumpen. What we do have is exploitation. I mean, you have it was I'll say it, Phapano. It was, and I said it yesterday on 702 as well. It was on ENCA that the leader of Action SA, the former mayor of Johannesburg, say that we must park aside Ubuntu. Literally saying that we must park aside Ubuntu. So we must lose some of our humanity as South Africans, and that is just absolute twaddle in many ways. But at the same time as well, and these are the last 2 points I will raise. The one is, we got to learn, this is going to be weird what I'm going to say now, especially with this audience, from Israel, in a manner of speaking. The Israeli, particularly those who are Jewish, went through a documented Holocaust by a genocide, basically, attempted genocide by Hitler and his cronies. And today, they seem to be taking that out on Palestinians and actually anybody who's of Islamic faith in many ways. They want to do to them what they felt, do to other people, the Palestinians, what they went through. We must be careful as South Africans that we, because of our frustration and how we were divided and treated as less than human and so forth, that we do others we feel as not as equal as us. We must be very careful to do that. And the final matter is that there is a real inherent danger that, and we can hear it in some of the inputs here today, and I'm sad that Sheik Saeed has left, that our country, our politics, through the ANC in particular, the liberation movement as a whole, but the ANC in particular, the Congress movement as such, who many of us, I know myself and Phapano grew up in that, right? I don't look as young as Phapano, but I'm sure we're not that old from each other, right? We had a hegemony of progressive politics in our country. That was the dominant refrain. It was unfashionable to be racist, It was unfashionable to be tribal or ethnic. It was unfashionable to hate any religions, to be sexist. You were called out. And this is what I worry about yesterday. It's what I call a MAGA Brexit moment in our country, where in MAGA, they managed to make reactionary, backward, Confederate politics, white grievance politics become the politics of the day. They made it easy to be racist. Similarly, with Brexit in the UK, you could be openly racist. Through Brexit, you had Islamophobia running around massively and still continues. We have lost the progressive nature of our politics. The dominant politics has become reactionary. And unless I'm saying we, as South Africans who claim to be progressive, can put aside these Neanderthal, petty, political party divisions and come together and rescue our politics to have a progressive basis and hegemony like which we had, of just the basic values of non-racialism, non-sexism, equality and unity. Not necessarily everybody has to be a socialist or Marxist and understand lumpen and so forth, but at least having that.
Yes.
I'll finish off here. All right. At least having that, we are going to run into trouble as a country that this reactionary politics is going to pull us apart completely. And it'll be like that you, Inayet, will be told, no, why are you coming to Polokwane and taking jobs in Johannesburg? Or Phapano in Soweto, you taking all the jobs, and also Sowetan saying we don't want people from Alex, and it'll be your turn soon as you go through. That's the politics of hatred. That's how it moves. Sorry, Inayat, I took quite longer. I tried to get as many things in as possible.
That's fine. I know, Phapano, you've been listening intently, and possibly you'd also like to comment on some of the issues that Donovan has raised. But also at the same time, what I'd like to include, and we've heard this yesterday, March on March saying they are going to keep on protesting until their demands are met. Our local elections are on the horizons, and Donovan speaks about the political project of this country as well. And just looking at, in the short term, in the medium term, and also in the long term as well, in terms of the anti-migrant agenda and what impact this is likely to have on the politics of this country.
No, thank you so much. I think just picking up from what Donovan was saying, and thank you so much, Donovan, but I just wanted to also start on a different note. The very fact that Jacob Zuma is part of the people who are fueling these divisions in the country, I think for me, it's an indictment, because not so long ago, working with him, he was preaching ideas of a white monopoly capital, of radical economic transformation. But if you look at MK Party today, led by former President Zuma and the likes of Andile Mngxitama, they are now pursuing a Mabahambe project where they are, directly attacking African migrants, in particular the poorest of the poor. So what has been very disheartening is that for some of us, who bought into this idea, the people who were behind some of these ideas have gone from a macro analysis of our society to a micro analysis, and in fact, taking opportune of whatever crisis that our country is faced with. So I just wanted to also indicate that, the populism and opportunism of Jacob Zuma, that was what I wanted to, also, start with. But to also, pick up on what Donovan was saying. We don't, we are extremely lenient to Black South Africans. Extremely lenient, because there's this insidious assumption that they must just be given and there's no proper input. And I think if you look at every community in South Africa, if you look at even the white community, Afrikaner, the Indian community, and everybody else, all these communities, they are hardworking communities. I mean, this idea that people are taking jobs and the employers are criminals, that's an insidious idea. And where it comes from and where it is derived, it is derived from political parties in government and political leaders who do not have to pay tax, who are not burdened by the living conditions. I mean, let me just give an example. A typical working class family in South Africa cannot afford to pay a South African on minimum wage. But there's this assumption that they should and they have money. I mean, if all of you do not have money, why would you assume that a person who hires an undocumented migrant has got the money from? If like this insidious idea, and that's why I say it's an entitlement, because people presume that jobs should fall from the sky and some of us should create jobs. And it also justifies this narrative that the Pakistanis, Somalians, Ethiopians, and Indians who have spaza shops, are taking the spaza shops. No one is taking any spaza shop from anyone. And unfortunately, because we like to tiptoe around Black people and we don't tell them the truth, that's why they think that what they say is correct. The reality is that every day, 2 billion rands leaves the townships, the villages, and informal settlements. And this is money that Black people consume. And they use this money to buy from malls in particular, but from these spaza shops. So Black people, we are consumers by nature, in particular, the poor and the working class. If you go to any township today, be it in Soweto, Khayelitsha, you would find the people wearing labels, eating fast food, and so on. So there is no desire to build, industries and factories, unlike our parents. I mean, my father bought his own house during apartheid in the township. He was not waiting for anyone to come and save him. And we stayed, by the way, with the very migrants. This idea that migrants are only coming now, that's another discussion that we need to have. If you look at, the industrialization of South Africa, if you take South Africa, you go back to the discovery of diamonds, but in particular the discovery of gold in 1883, you realize that the majority of people who have been hired in South Africa, it's African migrant labor. In the main, it's Africans who build the infrastructure that we enjoy today, the hospitals that we are fighting for, the bridges, the roads. It's men from Lesotho who build the economy, the mining powerhouses, the men from Mozambique, from Zimbabwe. So this insidious idea that it is our country, therefore we should beat up people and we should keep out people away. I think for me, it is nothing but backwards and regressive. Because the other reality is that South Africa owes reparations to many of these countries beyond the billions that we owe them, the pension funds and the insurances that our government owes to all these countries where the men worked the mines, where there was, South Africa is the epicenter of human trafficking. We don't even speak about that. The fact that for this country that we enjoy today, when we speak about our country, what we enjoy, the development that we enjoy today, it is at the back burner of African men. If you go to Malawi today, it is primarily degradation and squalor. And it's because Malawian men were stolen to come and build this country. And because we are people who are not driven by the past, we are people driven by self-gratification and instant gratification, we think that we are entitled. And what you also hear is that people are primarily holding on to this apartheid and colonial economy as theirs. But at the same time, making various claims. I personally, as an entrepreneur, I do not owe anything to any Black person. And I'm a product of the township where we were told that you have to wake up and you have to do for yourself. That is how we were brought up. All this language that people are taking your jobs, that is not the language that we were taught. Hence, I speak of entitlement. And by the way, I just want to close. South Africa is the only country in the African continent where we've got the social networks. It's important to mention that. You do not have the same in Zimbabwe and all these other countries, including free education at public sector level, including your NSFAS and many of the privileges that we as Black people, we have gotten. If you ask us, what have we done with these privileges? The very fact that Black children are raised by government incentives. So we have not taken responsibility to the fact that we've got a government, despite its challenges, which wanted to humanize us. But what is happening now, Black people just want more. Hence, my analysis is that there's also that factor of envy and jealousy, especially as it comes to the Ethiopians, as it comes to the Somalians, because they cannot, Black people in the townships and informal settlements and villages, they cannot run these tuck shops the same way as this men and women, men in particular, are running their spice shop because the attitude and culture is not the same. They do not spend money, they do not consume. So Black people do not have the same culture. We do not have the very culture of ensuring that money circulates amongst ourselves. Black people don't even love each other. They hate each other, but they use migrants to sanctify themselves. I mean, Black men rape Black women on a single day. 11 to 15 women are killed in the hands of Black South African men. They abuse. They don't raise their children. Over 65% of women are raising their own children. Then you've got the very same people who are telling us that other people are thieves, they're taking their women and so forth. This is not a normal people, because clearly they are trying, or they are, they're giving this, superior logic and morality, but these are people who are neglecting their children, who are neglecting their communities. So I think it's time that as Black people, we look, ourselves at the mirror. We look at the Indian community, at the families, because fathers are not there. We look at how this, children are raised in all the other communities. So for me, I think that it's now we are playing blame game. We do not want to take responsibility for our failures. And of course, political parties are feeding into this. But as Black people, no one is taking your job. It's time that as Black men in particular, you stand up and you start creating jobs. For a Black middle-aged man to claim that someone is taking a job, for me, it's an indictment. I just want to end there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's bring Melita into the discussion. Melita, when I look at your movement, when we talk about Siyafana Sonke as well, obviously launched to confront what we are seeing today, and everyone talks about continental solidarity. Where is the continental solidarity in all of this, in the xenophobia, in the Afrophobia that we see? And the fact that yesterday the leadership of March and March made it very, very clear that they are going to continue for the next 6 months. And you've made it clear on your side that, our neighbors have actually become scapegoats for the crisis that they didn't create. And just to look at it from your perspective in the campaign that you are going to be running in response, possibly to in the next 6 months, when you have March on March saying that this is going to be a weekly thing?
My network, I have got network problem. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Melita. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What I see is happening is that the poor people are fighting against each other, and they are like the poor, like people are feeling mighty, they're feeling power. If they are fighting, they are putting blame to someone. Like now we are putting blame to the migrants, in which we don't blame the government, and we don't blame what is happening from what has happened before 1994, because of I think now what we have to do, we have to come together. We have to fight for our Africa. We're not supposed to be divided here in South Africa, fighting against each other. And what I saw, and what I saw happening, it shows that a black man, they are angry, and they are angry of poverty. We were supposed to be sitting down, making plan, how are we going to fight poverty, not fighting amongst ourselves. We were supposed to be sharing skills, teaching each how we bring that peace. And it is very hard, because our South African flag have this white color that says peace and purity, but here in South Africa we don't have peace, purity. If you can listen to the meaning of our South African flag, like black. Black means the people. And if you can listen to the national song when they say Nkosi Sikelela Africa, it means we were praying for the whole Africa. And if you can go back to the constitution, if you can go back to the Freedom Charter, when they say South Africa belongs to everybody who lives in it, you can see that we have lost that. You can see that we are no longer thinking about building Africa. Now is the time where we allow the politician to divide Africa, to divide like South Africa to the south, to the southern part of South Africa, because even if we can have problem here, I think we will not ask help from the neighboring country the way we did. And then the other thing that I ask myself all the time is that others who are going out of the country, delivering, doing their job, what if whatever we are doing here in South Africa happens to them? What's going to be like? That is very, very painful. And then my last point is that please, let's go back to be human. And I enjoy being in Siyafana Sonke campaign, because our campaign is very committed. Our comrades in Siyafana Sonke yesterday, they worked day and night to make sure that people have food, to make sure that people are safe, to make sure that they contact police, to make sure that whatever is happening in the country doesn't affect children. There are children who are born in this time. They have been born outside because their mothers are from Malawi, their mothers are from Zimbabwe, without health care. And that is so painful.
No, absolutely.
I will end there.
Thank you for bringing that. I see Sheikh Saeed has joined us, and we've got about 5 minutes or so. Sheikh Saeed, I believe you are on the telephone line, and I think Melita spoke about let us be human, and Donovan also spoke about dehumanization, and this is absolutely important and critical for us. At the end of the day, Melita also quoted the national anthem. Hey, Nkosi Sikelela Africa, and he speaks about Africa as a continent. And once again, on the one hand, is this not hypocritical where we ask the Almighty to protect Africa, and what we are doing is obviously the sons and the daughters of Africa are actually suffering on our soil. Sheikh Saeed?
Oh, yes. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible now.
Okay, Shukran. Apologies, I've been trying to connect with the net and it was difficult to connect. Okay, thanks for the opportunity once again. First of all, I just wanted to clarify the issue of the analogy that I made earlier. I was just saying that if there is no security, whether at the borders or in our homes, then we will be vulnerable to a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, not because I was saying people are snakes or in that manner. For instance, in my community, there is youngsters who are smoking nyaupe and they are staying in town, they don't bath, they are called amapara and all that. And this thing we've never seen such things before. And there is problems of prostitution. There is a lot of challenges that we have. And most of these drugs that lead youngsters to go steal and stay in the streets and become street kids, most of the drugs, as we have seen on television, on Siyafana, a lot, 99%, if not 95% of the times, people who are caught selling and supplying these drugs are our brothers from illegal foreigners or from other African countries. Now, what I was trying to say is that if we leave borders or we leave our houses not secured, we risk a situation where we'll find challenges in our homes or even in our country. But apart from that, I went to the Sherwood camp where a lot of our Malawi brothers were there with one organization to go and deliver food and some sanitary, this thing, hygiene packs for the people who were there. And I saw the situation was very much appalling. And it doesn't mean that if I say our borders should be secured, that means I don't have any sympathy. I went there. I even went to the where they've been removed towards the Mabhida Stadium. I went there because I have humanity in me. I am worried also about our brothers because our concern. Let's just be honest. Our concern. Whoever was marching or the marchers, they did not say you must kill. They did not say you must intimidate. They did not say. They were always talking about peaceful marches. Yes, there could have been incidents where wrong elements might have done wrong things. If we agree that prostitution, drugs, human trafficking, and there must be no laws in our country just because we want to call each other Africans and we want to build Ubuntu and we want to build. So the laws of the country must not be obeyed. Anyone who came illegally in this country, whether they're selling drugs or whether they're doing anything, they must never be obeyed. Then we're not going to fix the problems in this country. We must first agree that the laws of the country must be obeyed. And lastly, just my last point, there are many, for instance, since I'm a Muslim, there are many Muslim companies that I know and the Muslim organizations. They have reached out to us asking for instance, Sanha, the halal body of this country, Sanha. They told us that when we visited their offices last week that 90% of their slaughterers in the abattoirs, they were illegal migrants or foreigners. So they reached out to us that they need more people to come and become slaughterers, including the imams, the muazzins, and a lot of the people who are, meaning the asatiza. Now they said they want South Africans with IDs who must be employed in this place. So what I'm trying to say is that the awareness that has been made by these march and those who are behind this awareness, it somehow has opened up spaces, hundreds of spaces, if not thousands of spaces, for local South Africans to have jobs. And many of our African brothers in different countries, I've seen them on social media, they are saying that let's go back and make our government to be accountable. Let's go back and fix our countries. And each and everything, there is advantages and disadvantages. The advantages here is that our African brothers are going back to go and fix their countries. And our South African brothers and sisters, they are being employed. So there is no way where we can just say there must be no laws because we want to build Ubuntu, we want to build Africa, so there must be no laws. Laws must not be obeyed. There must just be. I don't accept that narrative. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, Sheikh Saeed. In fact, I think we actually just run out of time. Donovan, just very quickly, a final comment from you. We've got about a minute or two.
Just on the whole, there is no way you're going to use the economic strife and say that you're not justifying violence and hatred. It is being cultivated, but it's been cultivated by many, not just the poor. It's been those who have political issues. We had President Mbeki told by the media, the mainstream media, that why are you giving a refugee status to President Aristide from Haiti, made fun of because he was in Haiti and so forth. There's a number of things we could go through. We have cultivated this apartheid understanding of ourselves and we have not come over it. And we need to get over it very quickly. Yes, there is economic problems. And don't only put that on the government's floor, because we sit in government. Our people, all of us, we work in government and do not deliver, not just the politicians itself. So start looking at ourselves. Thank you to both Phapano and Melita. Sheikh Saeed, we'll continue to have discussions. And thank you, Iniet, as well.
Well, thank you very much, Donovan, and it's an absolute pleasure. It's a pity, Phapano obviously, apparently she's had some Wi-Fi problems. We know that Melita had a bit of connectivity issues, and so did Sheikh Saeed as well. And let's hope that, this, we can actually have a lot more of these type of discussions. And I think Sheikh Saeed actually touched on some of the issues with regard to the social ills. And there again, one can actually unpack just so much in terms of social ills and where some of these issues actually lie, because all of this is interconnected, is interrelated. But for now, Donovan, an absolute pleasure catching up with you. I don't know, after such a long time, but we thank you. We do appreciate your time. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you.
Donovan Williams with us, and early on Phapano Phasha with us as well, together with Sheikh Saeed Sakala and Melita Nccobo on this discussion, and just looking at some of the revelations, some of the lessons that we can actually take, but also more importantly, looking at the challenges that are facing South Africa. And the critical question that we're going to ask ourselves is, how do we resolve this issue? What are some of the solutions? With that, we're going to go for a break. We come back. We still have got the second half of tonight's edition of In Conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi, coming up.